Mom said. Stay away from Christmas, you worthless loser. So I did. The next day, her heating bill bounced, her Wi-Fi died, and her car insurance expired. At 9:47 p.m., she texted, "Please fix this." I just grinned because she had no clue what was coming next. When my mom said that to me on December 20th, I was sitting in my car outside their house with a trunk full of gifts. I hadn't even gotten out yet. The text came through while I was double-checking the tags. There was no hello, no explanation, just that one line. I sat there for a solid minute staring at it. The snow had just started falling again. I watched it pile up on their porch steps like the world was trying to cover something ugly. I didn't reply. I didn't knock. I backed out of their driveway and drove 4 hours straight without stopping. I ended up at a cheap hotel just past the state line. Sat in the parking lot eating a cold sandwich from a gas station, still wearing the same sweater I'd put on that morning, green, festive with little embroidered lights. My sister dared me to wear. I looked ridiculous, like someone who still believed in family. Let me back up. I'm Monica, 33, software consultant. I live in Austin, but I grew up in Missouri. My parents still live there in the same two-bedroom house they had since I was a kid. My dad hasn't worked in years. Mom quit her job before the pandemic and never looked back. For the past 4 years, I've been paying their utilities, their groceries, their phone bills. Every time they hit a snag, I was the emergency fund. Always just a call away. And it wasn't out of guilt. Not really. It was out of duty. They made it clear growing up that love was transactional. I brought home good grades. They left me alone. I got a scholarship. They took credit. I got promoted. They expected gifts. When I bought my first house, my mom cried. Not because she was proud, but because I hadn't picked one in their neighborhood. But the thing that kept me on the hook all these years wasn't them. It was my sister Kayla. She's 28 now, studying to be a physical therapist. Bright, self-aware, funny in this dry, sarcastic way. That's probably the only reason I stayed sane through all of high school. She's the golden child to our parents. Can do no wrong. But unlike most golden children, she never used it against me. She knew they were wrong. She just kept her head down and tried to survive. And I tried to protect her any way I could. Paid for her textbooks, co-signed her lease. She never asked, but she always thanked me. So yeah, this Christmas was supposed to be for her. She hadn't been home in a while either. We were both going to surprise them. I drove 14 hours with a trunk full of stuff. Winter clothes for everyone, a mini projector for movie nights, ingredients for her favorite peppermint cake. I even got Mom a necklace I'd seen in an antique store back in Austin. Real gold. I thought maybe, just maybe, this year would feel different. But instead, I get that text. Stay away from Christmas, you useless failure. I didn't even ask what triggered it. I didn't want to know. Maybe she was mad I hadn't sent money last week. Maybe she was jealous I was doing better than them. Or maybe she just wanted to hurt someone, and I was the easiest target. Whatever the reason, it finally clicked in that moment. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a walking, breathing ATM. The next day, I called my bank. I removed my name from their account access, stopped auto-paying their bills, canceled their internet subscription, froze the joint credit card I'd opened for emergencies. I didn't say a word to them. I didn't need to. Christmas Day, Kayla texted me around noon asking where I was. She was sitting in their living room alone. No decorations, no food. Apparently, Mom had thrown a fit the night before and said Christmas is canceled since Monica thinks she's too good for us. I didn't tell Kayla the truth. Not yet. I just said something came up. She sent back a sad face and said, "This place is so cold." Literally and emotionally. That was all I needed to hear. At 5:42 p.m., I got a notification from the electric company. Payment failed. Account overdue. At 7:13, I got an email from the car insurance company. Lapse due to non-payment. At 9:47, Mom texted me. "Please fix this." Just like that. No context, no apology, not even a question mark. I looked at the message for a while. Then I turned off my phone and put it on the nightstand. I wasn't even angry anymore. Not yet. Something colder had settled in. Not sadness, not grief, something deeper, because they had no idea what was coming next. I didn't turn my phone back on until December 26th. When I did, the screen lit up with chaos. 8 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, and a row of texts that started off passive-aggressive and ended somewhere near hysterical. It began with "You need to grow up," moved to "After everything we did for you," and finished with "Don't expect a family when you're old and alone." who was predictable, almost boring in its cruelty. I stared at the messages, then locked my phone and slid it face down on the nightstand. I didn't owe them a reply anymore. That afternoon, I walked through the little downtown near my hotel. The streets were quiet except for the sound of boots crunching through salt and snow. I watched families coming out of coffee shops, laughing, holding bags of post-Christmas sales. Everyone looked normal. No one was burning bridges in parking lots or cutting off their parents over text. It made me wonder how many of those people had done what I'd just done, drawn a line that couldn't be uncrossed. By the time New Year's came around, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going back. Not to Missouri, not to that house, not to the role they'd built for me. The fixer, the wallet, the quiet daughter who kept everyone comfortable. I was done. It felt strange at first, like deleting part of my identity. For years, I'd measured my worth in invoices, in late payments, in small sighs of relief when they told me it went through. Every time I helped them, I thought I was saving the family. I didn't realize I was just prolonging its decay, and now it was finally crumbling. The heat in their house went out first, right after another storm hit. They called the electric company, but their account was already flagged as delinquent. A few days later, the internet was cut. Then the car was towed for unpaid insurance. I didn't even have to lift a finger. I'd simply stopped being their backup plan, and their entire system fell apart on its own. Kayla texted me a few times that month. At first, she thought Mom was just in one of her moods. Then she realized something was wrong. She said they'd been acting nervous, blaming each other for bills, snapping over every little thing. I told her everything. The text from Mom, the trunk full of gifts I never got to deliver. The hours I sat in their driveway thinking maybe I'd misread it, that it was a joke. I told her how I finally decided to cut the cords, all of them. She didn't try to talk me out of it. He just said, "I believe you." 3 words. That was all. But they hit me harder than anything my parents had ever said, because for once someone in that family actually saw what had been happening. Around mid-January, Dad left me a voicemail. His tone was serious, but still full of that same pride that always made him impossible to talk to. He said things were difficult, and that maybe we should have a family conversation before things go too far. Then he mentioned the house, how they might lose it, how they needed a little help getting back on track. There was again the assumption like the world owed them softness, like I hadn't already given them a lifetime of second chances. I didn't call back. Instead, I called Kayla. We talked for 2 hours long past midnight. She told me everything that had been happening since Christmas. How Mom blamed me for ruining the holiday. How Dad sat in the dark living room muttering that I turned my back on family. How they told Kayla not to end up cold and selfish like Monica. And the part that stuck with me most, Kayla said Mom was scared, not angry, scared, because for the first time, she realized I wasn't bluffing. That same night, I made another call to Aunt Lee, Mom's older sister, the quiet one who always stayed out of the drama, who'd slipped me $20 for gas the day I left for college because she knew no one else would. She answered on the first ring. I told her everything start to finish. She didn't interrupt. She didn't tell me to forgive them. She just listened the way no one in that family ever had. When I finished, she sighed and said quietly, "It's about time someone stood up to them." Then she told me something I didn't know, that my parents had been lying about their finances for years. They told the family I'd cut them off out of greed. They said I'd become one of those corporate types who thought she was too good for her own blood. And when Aunt Lee had asked for proof, Mom said I was mentally unstable. That was the moment something inside me turned to stone. I wasn't just done helping them. I was done protecting their image. The new year had barely started, but I already knew it was going to be the year everything changed for me and for them. By February, it wasn't just the house falling apart. It was their story. Aunt Lee called me again one morning just after I'd wrapped a client meeting. She said Mom had been calling around to different relatives trying to clear things up. Her version was that I'd gotten emotional, lashed out during a visit, and now was punishing them by withholding money. We didn't buy it. Neither did our cousin Jamie, who forwarded me a screenshot of a message Mom had sent saying, "We don't know what Monica's deal is lately. She's always been unpredictable." Unpredictable. That was the word they always used when I stopped doing what they expected. But they didn't know that this time I wasn't just setting a boundary. I was rebuilding my life without them in it. Their situation kept getting worse. Kayla said they were using space heaters in only 2 rooms now. The car was still out of commission. They borrowed one from a neighbor, but Mom managed to scrape a fender backing out of the driveway, and now they were facing a small claims issue over damages. Meanwhile, I was doing fine, better than fine. I'd picked up 2 new clients since January. I started sleeping through the night. I even rejoined the gym, not because I was trying to reinvent myself, but because I finally had the energy to care about something other than holding 2 other people's lives together. That shift in focus did something I didn't expect. It made me realize how deep the damage had gone. How I'd spent years chasing their approval like it was oxygen. Every promotion, every birthday gift, every wire transfer. All just bribes for basic kindness that never came. Kayla noticed the shift as well. We talked more than ever. She was quiet at first, reluctant to admit how bad things were getting. Then one night, she opened up. Mom had started asking her for money. Not much, just $20 here, a bit for groceries there, but it was beginning. Kayla, already working part-time while handling finals, had no extra to give. She said no. Mom exploded, called her selfish, ungrateful, just like me. Kayla hung up. Then she called me in tears, not from guilt, but because it proved everything. There was no bottom to how low they'd sink to stay comfortable. That's when I decided I was done being polite. I started telling the truth to anyone who asked. No more soft answers, no vague excuses. When Uncle Martin called out of the blue, saying he'd heard about family tension, I laid it out. They told me to skip Christmas, called me a failure. So I did. Everything since was just them facing the consequences. He mumbled something about hoping it worked out. But it was already working out, just not for them. Around then, Aunt Lee stepped up. She stopped just supporting and got vocal. She told Mom the way they treated me was disgusting. Told Dad to take responsibility instead of hiding behind pride. And they couldn't spin it. Lee had receipts, screenshots, voicemails. They tried guilting her, but she shut it down. This is what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Then the call started. Dad first, then Mom, then both. Voicemails, texts, crumbs of regret that never became real apologies. We've been thinking about how things went down. We never meant to hurt you. Or the worst. Let's move on from this drama. Drama, like it wasn't my life. Like they hadn't humiliated me, lied about me, used me, then discarded me when I stopped giving. Kayla wanted to believe they were trying. Maybe they were seeing the truth. Maybe they'd change. I told her I didn't care if they changed. The damage was done. I wasn't rebuilding something that should never have been that way. By mid-February, it went quiet. Suspiciously quiet. No voicemails, no texts. Even Aunt Lee hadn't called in days. I thought maybe they were finally accepting it. The loss, the silence, the end of their free ride. Then the letters came. Plain white envelopes, no return address, my name in messy, uneven handwriting I didn't recognize at first. The first arrived on a Wednesday. 2 pages, supposedly from Mom. No, I'm sorry. Just excuses, vague hints about the holidays being emotionally complicated. Things said in the heat of the moment. How I'd misunderstood. Misunderstood? She told me to stay away from Christmas because I was a failure. I read on, stunned by the gaslighting. No mention of Kayla, what they put her through, the lies to family. Just a soft push toward forgiveness, like I was the unreasonable one for having boundaries. 3 days later, another letter. Different handwriting. Dad's. Cold, clipped. Mom hadn't been the same since Christmas, sleeping more, forgetting things, skipping meals. You've made your point, but your mother is not well, and I can't do this without you. That line hit hard. For the first time in weeks, I hesitated. I called Kayla. Is Mom sick? She said, maybe. Mom had been off, slower, spaced out. Went to the ER after nearly fainting, but left before tests. Started saying odd things, like forgetting Kayla's schedule, calling her by the wrong name. It sounded bad. I hated that it stirred something in me. After everything, I wasn't heartless. So I drove back to Missouri. 12 hours, no warning. Needed to see for myself. Pulled into the driveway late at night. The house looked dark, smaller. Trash bags on the porch, an old box van tipped in the snow. I knocked. No answer. Used my key. Inside was cold, unnaturally quiet. Then footsteps. Mom came down the hall, wrapped in a blanket. She stopped when she saw me. I waited for tears, collapse, a hug. Instead, she looked annoyed. Why are you here? I asked if she was okay. She blinked. I'm fine. Why show up unannounced? I mentioned the letter. She looked confused. Said she didn't send it. Didn't know Dad had. I showed her the envelope. She glanced at it like it was nothing. Said she didn't write it. It wasn't her handwriting. It was his. He'd faked both. Her apology, her concern, using her possible illness as bait. I left without a word. Drove 5 miles out. Parked in a Walmart lot. Sat in the dark. It wasn't rage anymore. Just emptiness, like the last mask had fallen, revealing someone I didn't know. Called Kayla the next morning, told her everything. She wasn't surprised, just tired. She'd noticed things, small manipulations, inconsistencies. Dad whispering one thing to her, another to Mom. That's when we realized. He'd been playing us against each other for years. Later, Aunt Lee called. She was coming to town. She'd heard enough. None of us expected what she'd uncover, or how fast it would all unravel. Aunt Lee didn't warn anyone. She just showed up Saturday morning, walked to their door. Kayla was already there, dropping off groceries, trying to help without getting pulled back in. When Lee knocked, Dad answered, his face dropping like a stone. He wasn't expecting her or the thick manila folder she carried. Bank statements, emails, texts she'd gathered over years, spotting patterns that didn't sit right. She hadn't shown anyone until now. She told him to sit, laid it out. Payments I'd sent that vanished, gifts they denied, money gone. Then the shock, checks Dad wrote from Mom's account to himself, thousands drained. He'd manipulated her too, changing passwords, intercepting mail, making her dependent while claiming she was sick and unstable. He even warned Kayla not to trust Mom with bank info, saying she was slipping. But she wasn't. She was being controlled. Dad didn't deny it. He slammed the kitchen door. Mom sat silent for half an hour, like waking from anesthesia, then asked Kayla and Lee questions. Who paid what? How long? Why I'd stopped coming. Kayla told her. Mom cried quietly, sobbing like something cracked inside. Lee called me next day. They were trying to fix it. Mom wanted to talk. Dad had left. No one knew where. I thought of decades of silence, being used, covering for them. They expected forgiveness now. Dad the villain, Mom the victim, Kayla peacekeeper, Lee protector, me still grudging. But it wasn't a grudge, it was a decision. I told Lee I appreciated her and Kayla, but I wouldn't return. Ever. Fallout was fast. Kayla stunned, disappointed. Mom's trying. Don't blame her fully. I said she watched him and stayed quiet for years. That makes her responsible too. Silence. Then, I guess I didn't expect you to be so cold. I didn't expect you to care now. Last we spoke. Silence after felt empty, like an abandoned stage. Thought no contact would free me. It did briefly, then judgment hit. Cousins ghosted, coworker commented oddly on Instagram. Group text from Kayla. Mom in counseling, journaling, cries about me weekly. Dad elsewhere, damage ignored too long. She's not perfect, not the enemy. You're the missing piece. Like I was a puzzle to force back in. No response. Lee called, disappointed. People change, let go of past. Realized blame shifting. My refusal now the problem, me breaking the family. But it was already broken. I just stopped patching it with my skin. Mom emailed. I know I failed you, but I never stopped loving you. Deleted it. Love never protected me. It kept me obedient, quiet, demanded more. New guilt would flood next. No contact is slow decay. Invitations fade, check-ins stop. I became the story. Ungrateful, cold, selfish daughter. Even Kayla drifted, job out west. I congratulated, no reply. They're angry, I won't forgive, move on. I had stability, chose bitterness. Truth, I stopped accepting pain as love's price. They thought I'd hold the roof while fire spread. I walked. House collapses without me. Won't return, not birthday, holiday, funeral. Family's how they show up when it matters. When I sat outside with gifts and a text calling me failure, they showed who they were. Now in their wreckage, I'm building my own.